What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Slashers and Superheroes. I'm Cameron, this is Jacob, and welcome to the spoiler section of Dune Part 2. If you haven't watched the non spoiler review for this movie, go check that out before you watch this because I don't know what you're doing here if you were watching the spoiler. Anyway, but yeah, we're going to talk the movie. We're going to go key moment by key moment through the plot and say what we liked about. I mean, we both gave it a 10 out of 10, so obviously we're gonna like
Mhm.
every single key moment, but just give our thoughts on it. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So the movie starts with I can't really remember the names of the princess and the emperor. It's very hard
Mhm.
to learn names for this movie without
Yeah.
subtitles because their names are just super like intricate. Not
Mhm.
not confusing. They're just very intricate, and they have a lot of vowels and consonants, and it's very hard. But Florence Pugh is the princess, and Christopher Walken.
Princess or
So you can't even say it, even with looking at it. The princess,
Orelon.
the princess, and the emperor, played by Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Um, they're talking about how the Atreides family was all burned up. The Harkonnens took over Arrakis in the
Mhm.
spice trade, and they basically Florence Pugh just gives us a little recap of what happened in the first part. She's like talking to like a little like it's like a little 3D digital thing. It like puts engrails and letterings on like a roll that you would see in like the past if like you were to roll a piece of paper,
Mhm.
right?
It's almost like an advanced typewriter.
Right. So she's
Yeah.
like talking into like a microphone for it to write
Mhm.
down. So I guess she's like sending it to somebody. And
It's
so
a voice text. Yeah.
it's a voice text. So we get that, and then we're led straight to the Fremen. We're straight to Paul and Zendaya's character,
Johnny.
uh, Johnny. Yeah. Um,
Johnny. Yeah.
Johnny. Yeah. I always thought it was Johnny. I'm like, what?
Johnny Bravo. Yeah.
Johnny Bravo. Yeah. Johnny and Paul and fucking Javier Bardem's name.
Stilgar.
Stilgar. God, I can't even
Mhm.
remember the names. Stilgar, Shani, and Paul, and his mom are all, they're in the dunes of Arrakis. The Harkonnens are hunting them, and then they take out the Harkonnens, and yeah, that goes by.
Mhm.
Um, and then they're taken to the actual place where the Fremen live, in
Mhm.
the north, correct?
Mhm.
The north side of Arrakis, and of course the Fremen are very hostile towards Paul at first,
Mhm.
and then I guess Stilgar was like talking like just talking to people because as soon as Paul walks into all those group of people, they started and his mom, they're all like, "Oh, they're here, they're here." What's the name um of what they thought Paul was? It was like Halud something.
Yeah. The Messiah.
The
Pretty
Messiah.
much.
Well,
They're
just the
yeah.
Messiah.
And they were they're kind of iffy on him joining the Furman because he killed one of the Furman. He killed Jameis at the end of the
Yes.
first movie. So they don't know if he's going to be a traitor or if he's like a spy, or they call him a rat.
Yeah.
Um, so they're kind of iffy on him joining the Fremen.
Right. And you can continue with that since you're on a roll. What
Mhm.
happened after that?
Um, After that, uh, don't they? There's a battle right between more of the Harkonnens come, and that's when
Yeah,
we get the
so the
battle.
Harkonnens are looking for spice,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all like underneath the sand, and they've got like it's kind of like when you go scuba diving and you have like the thing attached to your goggles to go underneath
Mm-hmm.
like from under the water out to the air. Well, they're in the sand and they're breathing through like these tubes out of the sand, and they're just hiding, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the Harkins are just kind of like going through this all the spice, and then they just jump up and they ambush them. And Paul and Shari just basically take out the entire platoon by themselves. And
Yeah, I thought that was a cool moment
mm-hmm,
because he's like distracting. He's running off, but he's staying behind the legs to
yeah,
stop from getting shot at. to distract him pretty much.
And
I
I
thought
thought
that
I
was
thought it
really
was
sneaky.
funny because Paul was like going from one leg to the other. He was distracting
Mm-hmm.
the helicopter thing, so Shawnee can take it out with the launcher.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he moves towards the leg moves, and he goes shit, and he has to like double time it. But Shawnee eventually
Yeah,
got the copter.
and I don't know if it was right after or right before, but Paul's mother Jessica,
Mhm.
she drinks the water of life to ever become the
Mother,
Reverend mother.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and she almost dies, but because she was in the Bene Gesserit, she can control the poison.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but all the people that didn't believe in the writings, kind of like Stilgar and his people, they believed in all the writings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But all the like Shawnee and the other people, like this girl that she talked with all the time, and then all the other people that
Mm-hmm.
she was talking with, didn't believe in the writings, so they thought it was a whole bunch of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
Paul's
and
like, yeah,
something that was quickly and something that was like quickly mentioned in the first one, is that his mother is pregnant
oh yes,
with a daughter with Paul's little sister.
yeah,
So we get more of that. You first see it. It shows the her daughter inside of her stomach while she's drinking the water of life.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's fun. And it's funny that the the fetus infant daughter is talking to Jessica the
Mm-hmm.
entire movie, and it's really
We
creepy.
find out too. Uh, didn't want to bring it up in non-spoiler. We find out too that's Anya Taylor Joy's character.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
see her for about 10 seconds.
yeah. She kind
Yeah.
of she was interviewed, and she was like, "Yeah, I have like a little cameo in Dune Part 2.
Mhm.
It's not a big role. Turns out
Yeah,
she's
she was
Paul's
right.
sister,
Yeah, yeah.
and in like the future, because
Mm-hmm.
we'll get to it later. We'll get to it
Yes,
later
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because there's a reason why we see Anya Taylor Joy as the grown up
Mm-hmm.
sister of Paul. So we get through all that, and then what else? What happens after that? I think Paul goes through like Fremen training. He has to
Mm-hmm.
like he has to prove
Yeah,
himself.
to
So he
officially become a part of the Fremen.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
he proved himself as a worthy warrior, right? So he got his warrior name, which I think was like the Sand Mouse, and then
Mm-hmm.
he got his actual Fremen name. But then he also had to prove that he had to belong with the Fremen.
Mm-hmm.
So he lived like he lived a day in the sands and like camped
Mm-hmm.
there and had to like learn how to not escalate the worm to try to get him, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually that winds up all to him riding the worm, which is
This all
this
the stuff
part.
before, all the battle stuff before, like the battle, the fighting beginning of the movie, and the battle with Paul and Shawnee with the launcher and everything.
Mm-hmm.
All that was really cool. This was like the first moment in the movie where it was like this was like a moment where it's like, yeah, you got to see this on the big screen.
Yeah,
For me, this
we,
was
we
like the first moment when he rides the worm.
we saw it in XD, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what I mentioned in the non-spoiler section, this is my favorite part of the film. The the
Oh,
the
okay.
the way that he like is literally hanging on for dear life with these hooks and this worm and the XD audio just like it's like surrounding you like a
It
cloud.
it was
And
so cool, dude.
yeah.
Like the worm, you can just see the sand coming up because you know the worm's moving underground
Mm-hmm.
under the sand. And as it gets closer and closer, I don't know the sound design of it. It almost felt like a tornado was getting closer and closer to Paul. Just
Yeah.
the rumbling, it was so cool.
And he was like trying to get up, but he was like floating as he was hooked onto the worm, so he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
stand up. And just the way the sand kept hitting him, and then like every time the sand would hit him, you would get like a like from the XD audio.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
I thought it was cool too how when he's running down the worm and he jumps on the worm and he's like trying to get on and everything. I thought the music was a little bit subtle
mhm,
during those moments.
mhm.
And then once he actually gets the hooks on and he's officially like riding the worm, that's when the score breaks out and the Dune music, the ah,
Yeah.
that's when that kicks in, which I thought was really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that song. Um, And
So
then
that
of
was your
course
favorite part. Okay.
that was really I like it was so cool. Like Jacob, I was like I had trouble breathing because I'm not a big roller coaster guy, right? I hate the feeling of just like ooh, and so the way that he was kind of like sand was hitting him and he was going ooh, and it was just so it was like I was like
Oh, dude, it's another thing too. How in the world did they shoot that?
I don't know.
It looked real.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
It's outstanding how like the cinema it's gonna win it's gonna win an Oscar for
Oh yeah.
cinematography. It's just no
It
question.
honestly, it it might end up along with cinematography. It might best direction too. It might with Denis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really might.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he becomes the Fremen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Officially, yep.
and this was like one of the biggest worms that has ever been ridden. I think. What was it, Shai Hulud, or was it bigger than Shai
Mm-hmm.
Hulud? It was Shai Hulud.
I believe, yeah, I believe it was like the big one. That's what Stowar said.
Okay.
And what I thought was pretty interesting was that they kind of like there were people in the Furman, but that were kind of iffy on him joining because of what happened in the end of part one. And I thought it was interesting how they went from like kind of iffy on him to after he rode that worm. He even mentions it. Paul does. After they rode that worm, they almost started like worshiping him, and they were like following him everywhere. Like he was instantly like the leader
Mm-hmm.
of the Furman, which I thought was pretty cool. Like
Because it was a part of the writings, right? Because
mm-hmm,
Jessica, she's the mother at this point, and she's like
mm-hmm,
in like the prey room, I guess. And
mm-hmm.
this one lady comes in, and when the lady comes in, it goes from like this shot of someone riding the worm, and
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Yep.
it goes to
It's
her
like the same
walking over.
shot, but it's like in a drawing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she was like just like in the writings, he
Mm-hmm.
rode Shai Hulud, and so that's why everyone started worshiping him. So
Mm-hmm.
that was one of my favorite parts, just
Yeah.
the
I thought
way
that
it
was
was
pretty
shot.
cool too, because like I said, they started following him and like almost worshiping him, and he was like becoming annoyed with it, or like kind of like, guys, calm down, like I'm not the Messiah type of thing.
Yeah, well, that
Yeah.
changes later.
Yep. Yep.
His attitude changes for sure.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm,
Yep. It almost I don't know if you want to save for the end, but the I we've never read the book, so
mhm.
this is a surprise to us that this is actually how the book goes. But it almost has me curious if the power is going to go to his head so much from being the Messiah and like taking the throne that he's almost going to turn into the like turn heel. He's almost going to turn into the villain in the third movie.
Well, you used a wrestling term. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, right. He's almost going to like turn into the villain in the third movie. It's interesting.
Mm,
That's why I'm like it's bold, which hey, if the books do it, salute to the books
hmm.
for not being cliche
Yeah.
back then. Um, yeah, it's interesting of how that turns out.
So what happens after that? So he becomes like this messiah figure basically,
Hmm.
and what happens after that?
Um, so after that, that's when it cuts to the Harkonnens, I believe, and we spend some time over there, right? That's when we meet introduced to so we have like the Colosseum, correct?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. We see Baron. We see Baron played by
Baron
what's his name?
Vladimir Harkonnen,
Yep, played by
Stellan Skarsgård.
yep, yep.
Great actor. You see him in a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, and that's when we get introduced to Fade Rothra, played by Austin Butler,
Austin Butler.
and they
Hmm.
have like the people that survived that were part of Arrakis. They
Yeah.
go out there like stumbling and limping and everything because they're hurt from battle,
Hmm.
and they end up having this little like Coliseum type fight with Fade Rothra, which I thought was really cool. It was really cool too because it was like a stylistic choice for it to this moment right here. The whole entire Coliseum fight and everything. It was in
Hmm.
black and white, but what I thought was interesting, but it wasn't just like a random style choice to have it turn black and white. They even like bring it up. Isn't it like the black sun or the black
The
moon or
Black Sun,
something?
yeah. And
Yeah, black
the
sun. Yeah,
way it
which
was
turns
shot,
everything black and white.
one
Mm-hmm.
of the shots was when the Baron was on, because he's like on life support basically from part one,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on his little seat, and he's like moving from like inside, I guess like the main Harkonnen base, He's going from inside of it to the outside underneath the black sun, and you can see the
Hmm.
change in color as he. And I
Oh,
thought
it's
that
so
was
cool.
so
Yeah,
cool, so
yeah,
cool. But yeah, continue.
yeah. That was it's tough. There's three scenes for me that were like top three. Right in the Sandworm is up there, but for me, my top three were this was part of my top three.
Mm-hmm.
We get introduced to Fade Rothra and the whole the Coliseum fight and everything. Um, so they he has the fight, he defeats all of them, and then afterwards he talks with Baron, and Baron brings up how pretty much the plan is for him to take the throne of
To
the Emperor.
become Baron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep, yep, and I thought that was really cool how it played out. Like it was written really well. Man, Austin Butler. I wasn't crazy about Elvis, but
he was a good
I will
Elvis though.
I will say this: he freaking commits
Mm.
whatever role he has,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I do think that his character, um, he is batshit crazy, and he does a really good job on like, cause all right. So if y'all watched the non spoiler review, we talked about a specific character that we thought was underutilized. I think that was Dave
Yep,
Bautista's character,
yep, yep. That's what I was talking
Beast
about. Yep.
Robin.
Hmm.
He was a punk. He was a
He's a coward.
he's a
Yeah.
coward, and I was like, wow, because in part one, a lot of people were talking about Beast Robin. He's a psychopath. He's crazy,
Well,
and then in this one, he's just like completely like downgraded. I think that's maybe one of my
well,
main
I
cons,
thought,
honestly. Now that I'm
yeah,
thinking
but
about it.
I think what they were going for, and if it's the same way in the books, was that he was like he was a coward,
Mm-hmm.
but he was hiding it. He was trying to hide it from all his like screaming and yelling and being very over the top. That was his way to hide his cowardness and him being scared. And then his brother, played by Austin Butler, Fade Rothra, he was more like he was definitely more evil, but he wasn't like scream at you type of thing. He was like he
Okay,
was like
yeah,
quietly terrifying.
yeah. So let me give you an example. So in the beginning of the movie, when the Freemen are taking out all the spice collectors and they're just destroying all the ships and all the machines, and Beast Robin is and he's told like, hey, listen, we gotta do something about this. He would just scream and yell, and he would. I think he slammed somebody's head into the thing, but other than that, like
Hmm.
he didn't do anything. Just a bunch of screaming and yelling. But then when Fade Rafra came into the picture and he became the newly appointed future Baron, whenever someone was like, we gotta do this, he would just slit their throat and be like, I don't want
Hmm.
to listen to you anymore. Get rid of the body. He would just like, instead of yelling, he'd just be like, all right, shut
It
up,
reminded me of
and just slit his throat.
because this actually came before. Um, it reminded me of Darth Vader in the original trilogy.
He would just
How
start choking out people.
if someone would
Shut
try
up.
to like interrupt him or just talk when interrupt him, he would instantly just force choke him and kill him
Yeah.
or almost kill him. That's what it reminded me of, where someone would talk over him and it's just dead.
Like, shut up.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing when we first got introduced. He just started slicing the throats of random girls. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's a psycho.
Hmm.
But
Well, I thought it was cool too because that happens. You see, um, I can't think of a Dave Bautista's character's name. Um,
Robin.
yeah, you can see he's scared
Hmm.
of Fade Rothra.
Yeah.
He's scared of his brother instantly right there. The way he walks in the door when it first shows him, he's like, I don't know. He looks over and sees the dead girls, and you can tell he's scared. Um, and then right after that too, uh, the I can't remember her name. She's a Benny Gesserit. Um,
Margot Fenring, played by Leah Sadu.
mhm. She
We see her in a bunch of stuff.
she looks like she's like seducing
Hmm.
Fade,
Yeah.
and then she has him stick his hand in the box, which is
What Paul
what
did.
was in the first movie
Yeah.
when Paul Atreides got tested. Yep.
And she was basically just trying to see how much pain he would endure and how much
Hmm.
how much danger the Emperor
He passed the
was in.
test just like Paul did.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he was like she was like, yeah, he loves pain.
Hmm.
He straight up loves it. And
What
so,
I thought was really cool too was that he he was mentioned before it showed him
mhm,
when Florence Pugh's the princess, um when he brings up his name and she's like, he's psychotic like him, he's psychotic, and then it cuts to him. I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, like here let's show you why he's psychotic. Slices
Hmm.
a couple girls' throats,
Hmm.
licks his tongue with a knife. It's not sharp enough. Sharpen it more, type thing. Because he put the point of the
Yeah.
blade on his tongue. He didn't bleed. He
Hmm.
was like, it's dull. Sharpen it.
Yeah.
So after we get introduced to Floyd Rifle, I'm trying to remember what happens. So Josh Brolin's character comes back. I guess he's
Yeah.
like
Stilgar.
he's
Stilgar.
not Stilgar,
Gurney.
Gurney. Yeah,
Yeah. Gurney. Yeah.
Gurney comes back. I guess he got saved by like this mining this spice mining industry
Hmm.
thing. I'm not entirely sure. They looked like miners. They didn't look like that
Hmm.
they were part of the
And he
Harkonnens.
has like a scar from a battle
Yeah.
from the first movie. Yeah.
And so he comes back, and him and Paul get back together.
Hmm.
Uh, and then he mentions, um, I think Paul mentions how many like Fremen he works with, and
Hmm.
Gurney's like, why don't you just use them to get whatever you want? I guess that's what implanted all the stuff that happens later on into Paul's head.
Hmm.
Gurney is just like, well, you have all the power. They look up to you. They worship you already. Why don't you just use
Hmm.
all the men and do what you want to do with it? And
Hmm.
and Shawnee, she saw that. She was like, I'm
And
watching you.
during this time too, this is when Paul starts to have the visions and the nightmares
Mm-hmm.
of the future,
Mm-hmm.
because they're in the northern part of Arrakis, and he starts having the visions of, if they all go down to the southern part, that's when the massacre happened of millions dying. So
Yeah.
he's trying to, he doesn't want to go south because he doesn't want any chance of that happening,
Mm-hmm.
because some of his visions have been coming true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and then later on, Gurney says, "Hey, yeah, your dad when he moved here, he stashed a bunch of nuclear weapons.
Hmm.
So let me go ahead and show you the stash." And so they went and they saw the stash. Again, Shawnee is concerned, and then Paul's just kind of like, yeah, I like this. And so that leads to Paul. So how Jessa becomes the mother, she drinks the
Water of
water of
life.
life,
Hmm.
which we
That
see
comes from the
the worms,
sandworms.
right?
Mm.
They basically they drown the worms and they just kind of like take all the
It's
water of
almost like their
life out.
blood. Yeah.
Yeah. So the how Jessica became the mother was by drinking the water of life. So
Mm-hmm.
Paul, he's like, okay, I've been getting all these visions. I have the weapons. I'm hearing things about the emperor and stuff like that, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
he had no answers. So he was like, all right, I'm gonna go and drink some of the water of life, and so he does. He nearly
And this is,
dies.
and people, his mother's kind of iffy on him doing it
Hmm.
because um, no man can drink the water and live. That's that's what the I won't say the tale, but that's what's been known, is that um, no man can drink the water and live. So they're thinking if he drinks it, he's gonna die.
Yeah, and
Yep.
so he drinks it. He gets these visions again, um, and what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
This is when he has the vision of his sister, right, in the future. This
yes,
is when
Anya
Anya
Taylor
Taylor-Joy.
Joy. This is when we see her. Um, she's like saying, "I love you, Paul. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what you do, I love you." Um, and it looks like he's on Arrakis, but there's like water, like seas, right
Mm-hmm.
next to it, which is really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
How that was
It's
shot.
almost like paradise. He talks about leading them to paradise.
Hmm.
Yep.
And so he sees what he has to do to get paradise for the Fremen,
Mm-hmm.
and
It was
so
almost like a mix between Arrakis and Caladan, which
yeah,
is the planet, home planet of Atreides.
Atreides,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, he's kind of just lying there, not dead, but his vitals are kind of low.
Mm.
Shawnee walks in, um, and then Jessica's like, you gotta get him up. You gotta wake him up." And she's like, "No, I won't do it." And then Jessica uses the weirding way, I think is what it's called, the literal like the way they talk to
I think it's
people. They
called
get
the
them to do stuff.
is it the voice of truth or
No, the weirding way. It's what Jessica was teaching
okay
Paul in the first
okay
first Dune. I have that written down, by the way.
okay.
From when I watched the first movie. Um,
As you can tell, you listening, so much happened in this movie. It's gonna take multiple watches. Yeah,
yes. So yeah, so she uses the
but
weirding
it's not
way.
like a lot happened, but it's not like oh, it's too complicated. Like it's not explained enough. It's just there's so much lore that another rewatch will really. It was the same thing with the first one. When I rewatched the first one, I really got the story and everything. Yeah.
So Jessica uses the weirding way. Um, Shawnee gets more of the water of life and puts it on Paul's lips or into his mouth
From her tears.
from from her
Mm,
tears, right? And
mm.
so he wakes up and Shawnee slaps the shit out of him and walks out.
Yeah.
And
What did you think about that turn and everything with like Chani almost her being against him drinking the water and becoming the Messiah?
um it makes sense because like earlier on she was very against the writings. She did not
Mm.
believe in any of that. Like it was very like Stilgar was like, I know you don't believe in the writings, but this is like,
Yeah,
just stick
I
to the
thought it was
plan.
interesting because there's parts of the Fremen that believe in the writings, and there's parts of the Fremen that don't. And
Hmm.
Stilgar's on the side that believes, and Chani and other characters are on the part that don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she didn't believe in it. She didn't want Paul to do it. And at that point she loved Paul, so she didn't want him to die, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she was very upset with him. So at that point she walked away. And then Paul later on, once the entire like area was cleared, he had talked to Jessica and was like, "I'm a part of the Harkonnen family. I saw the bloodline." And at that point, I was like, and then he was
This
like,
is a big reveal.
and then he was like, "You are the daughter of Vladimir Harkonnen." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"What the like? What are the
This was like a Luke, I am your father moment.
yeah like Frank Herbert? What were you? Were you drinking the water of life when you wrote this? Because what in the hell is going on?" So we
I thought it
learned
was
that
cool though. I
it
like
was
the
cool.
reveal because it just adds more stakes with
Hmm.
like him. They're Harkonnens. That's their bloodline. They're
Yeah.
going against their bloodline. Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, so
Very
Paul's
similar to
part
Star Wars.
yeah,
Luke
Paul is part
Skywalker's
of
going against his
Atreides,
bloodline.
and then he's part Harkonnen. So
Mm-hmm.
we learned that, and then he basically interferes in like the praying circle, and he's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of dressed in all black, but also kind of still dressed as Fremen a little bit.
Dude, this is when the shot. One of my favorite shots in the whole movie is a shot where Paul has the hood on, and he's just drank the water of life. So he's this is when like his demeanor and everything changes. He officially becomes the leader. The shot where it's in slow motion and he's walking through the crowd of everybody,
Mm.
and just it gave me chills, dude. The way it was shot and the music, it
Yeah,
was like that's when the movie took a turn where it was like okay, like it's about to go down. Yeah.
yeah. So he walks into yeah, he goes through the crowd, and the music, oh, the music when he was walking was super cool. So
Mm-hmm.
he walks through the crowd, he goes into the prayer circle. He's like, this is the moment you feared. I
Mm-hmm.
am the one. And then he starts like going to each person and telling them the life story. And he's like, yeah, your grandma died and she lost her eye at 12. And oh,
That's
you feed water to dead people and you enjoy it in your dreams. And then everyone starts believing that he
mm-hmm.
can see the
He
future
can
and he can
finally
see
see
into
the future
people.
clearly. He mentions it being finally to see everything clearly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, Shawnee doesn't like it. I think before Paul even arrived, Shawnee
He
was like,
almost he becomes like arrogant,
yeah,
like the already. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's I feel like the way it's um it feels like almost the water of life like changed his personality.
yeah.
Like he almost not that he turned to the dark side because he's not. It's almost like the power went to his head instantly. Yeah.
It seems like that
Mm-hmm.
because he was very like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay who I am. I'm not gonna get into that. And then he drinks the
Mm-hmm.
water of life, and he's like, he turns dark. He turns into Anakin. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So again, Chani doesn't like it. I think Chani, before Paul even got to the thing, Chani was like, this prophecy is meant to enslave us. Don't
Mm-hmm.
believe this. Don't believe the writings. Of course, but everyone believes it
And that's when
because
Gurney pulls her down. He's like, "That's not a good idea."
don't do that, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Gurney, I love Gurney. He's a character I really like Gurney in the first movie, but
mhm,
I love him even more after this one.
yeah.
Uh,
But again, Gurney did put that idea into Paul's head, so we can thank
Mm-hmm.
him for that. Um, so once that all that's done, I think they lead the main attack. So the Emperor comes from his planet and he comes to
Mm-hmm.
Arrakis,
From Gotti Prime,
Gaidi
or
Prime.
yeah, Gotti Prime, yeah.
He comes from that area. He lands on Arrakis, and he starts talking to Baron, and he's like disappointed in the fact that he's not getting the job done, and so he gets taken out. His life support gets cut off, and then Paul and the Fremen, they lead like a three-pronged attack on like the canyon of where they landed in,
Mm-hmm.
and this was so
This
cool.
this was my other the Coliseum fight and this battle coming up
Hmm.
is another part of my top three favorite moments in the movie.
And so he uses these nuclear missiles. At this point, Shawnee is just like doing it for the cause. She's not really even talking to Paul at this point. Paul's kind of
Mm-hmm.
looking at her and checking up on her,
Yeah,
but
she mentions how she's fighting for her people.
yeah,
She's not fighting for anyone outside of the Fremen.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Paul launches these nuclear missiles onto this like cliff, and all these rocks just shoot into the like all the
Dude, that's
guards,
another awesome shot.
and
When
the
the
way the
explosion
rocks,
happens,
yeah,
he's standing there. It's a shot behind Paul, and he's standing there, and the explosion happens, and his cape and his not a cape, but like he's a freaking superhero.
mhm.
His his like uh I'd say outfit, his clothes are like blowing in the wind, and you see the explosion. It's such a cool shot.
Yeah. So all these rocks are like flying off and killing all these guards, and then the aftermath, and then all the Fremen pop out of the dirt and start slicing people up and killing them and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. And then the Fremen, they get into like the throne room and they take out like the standing guards, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's more guards protecting the Emperor. And then at this point, uh, Baron Vladimir is still on the ground, crawling
Mm-hmm.
towards the throne. And then Paul comes in. I don't think they really know it's Paul, but they have an idea. But he
Mm-hmm.
comes in, he looks at him and says, "Hello, grandfather," and stabs him in the neck and
Mm-hmm.
kills
A
Vladimir.
really cool moment.
Um,
And then Fade Rother, he loves it. Austin Butler,
he's like
he like
smiling,
smiles.
and you could see him too. He's like smiling, like his lips are kind of moving up and down. He's kind of smiling at it, but also kind of just like trying to be serious in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't remember what Paul tells the Emperor. Do you remember what he looks at the Emperor? He kind of like walks up to him and tells him something, like to meet him, I guess, or
Yeah,
call the great houses.
he mentions their artillery and pretty much bombing from the artillery they had from his dad. Um, Pretty much he threatens pretty much him taking the spot or there being consequences. That's
Hmm.
it. And this is where, and right after this, I believe, is where one of my favorite moments is when the Freeman and everybody they come riding in on the three sandworms coming at the same time.
Oh yeah,
Such a cool
and
shot.
they just
Yeah.
eat everybody up.
Hmm.
Very
That
cool.
was like that was another one of my favorite moments.
And then after that is like the
That's when the
main
full on
ending.
battle happens. You
Hmm.
see the shot of like everybody running at each other. That's when the full on battle starts after that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And of course, they take all the Harkonnens out. They burn the bodies like they did with House of Atreides.
Hmm.
And then they get to like I guess the top room because I remember in the first part, Paul and his dad were kind of looking out like this area. They were kind of looking out onto the city or to
Yeah,
the spice
Arcane,
area,
the
Arcanine.
city in
Yeah.
Arrakis. Yeah.
So that they went to that same room, and they had
Mm-hmm.
all the Fremen there, or the main Fremen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, and Paul like kind of talks to Chani real quick, and he says, "I will love you for as long as I breathe." Because and
Mm-hmm.
also the great houses are like coming down,
Mm-hmm.
and he
This
and
is then. This is when right before that, I believe, is when we get uh the quick fight with Gurney and can't remember.
Robin,
Yep, and that's when he dies.
yeah,
Not Gurney, but Robin. Yeah.
Robin, not Batman and Robin, but Robin,
Yep.
Robin. Um, yeah. So Dave Bautista is out. He's out for the count. But yeah, that happens, and then Paul sees the great houses. He's like, "Tell them to stop, or else I'm gonna shoot missiles at them." And then he talks to Shawnee, says, "I will love you for as long as I breathe." And then the emperor, the princess, and all the people that were in the courtroom or in the throne room, they come in, and then Paul's like, "I am, you know, Duke of I am the Duke of what's the name of the freaking planet?
Atreides.
I am the yeah,
Or
I am the Duke of Atreides. I
mm-hmm.
am the Lord of Arrakis or whatever
Mm-hmm.
he calls himself, and then he calls him the title name of the Fremen, and then he's like, "I will fight you," and then of course, Freyr Rothra steps up, the bloodthirsty
Yeah,
guy
he
that he is,
says too about him taking the throne and um
wedding Florence Pugh,
yep. And
and
that was a turn. That was a turn when I was like,
I
whoa.
was like, "You
And then
just told
you
this
see the
chick
look on
behind you
Johnny's
that you
face.
love her," but I think at that point he was kind of like he was angry.
Such a just such an unfortunate situation to be in,
Hmm.
having to choose between Zendaya and Florence Pugh. You know.
Yeah, such a shame. Such a shame. And it's funny because I think Timothy and Florence, they're like best friends because they worked
Mm-hmm.
on Little Women or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a couple scenes together, and they're best friends apparently. So I
Mm-hmm.
found that quite funny. Um, so yeah, picking between Zendaya and Florence Pugh, like that's like
Yeah, but what was your thoughts on the turn? Because we mentioned it spoiler and a non spoiler, but we didn't get into detail about the twist of the turn and then the that towards the end there.
I think at that point he was kind of angry because he didn't really look at Shawnee at all. He was just kind of like, give me the power because I need to
Mm-hmm.
give paradise to the Fremen. And then as the scene progresses, he gives more like kind of like I'm sorry looks to Shawnee
Mm-hmm.
because like I guess it was like adrenaline or something because he has the fight. I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
Which this is just my favorite part of the movie.
So yeah, he gets into the fight with Freyr Rothra.
So cool.
Very very cool fight because there's a whole bunch of sound effects and Timothy pulls out like
No
a full.
music,
There's no music, all sound
dude.
effects.
And
Timothy brings out like a full on 360 spin, like dodge.
dude, it's what I've always loved about not just this, but like any type of fight
Hmm.
where it doesn't look like it's choreographed is so fun to watch.
Yeah,
Like I don't know about you, it didn't look choreographed to me.
no,
It didn't look like they were thinking about, okay, I'm doing this move next. Like they were just going. It was quick. It was so fun to watch.
yeah, they wanted to fuck each other up. That's all I know.
Oh, it was such a cool fight.
Yeah, so
Um,
Freyr Rothra gets like a little gut into his ribs. Paul kind of
and it
staggers back a little bit.
showing Austin Butler's so good in this in the role.
Hmm.
He's saying he mentions Chani and
Her
he calls her
pet.
Paul's pet. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I thought for a second because I we hadn't read the books. I thought for a second he was gonna freaking go over there and stab her and kill her.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And
I would have been like, whoa.
he was kind of like trying to get into Paul's head, but Paul didn't say a
Mm-hmm.
word. He said
Mm-hmm.
nothing, which I think added
And
like
I think I don't think he said anything just because like he didn't care about her anymore. I really think he does still care about her. We could be wrong when we get a third movie, but at least from what I interpret, he because he went over there to stop it. Yeah.
mm. So yeah, he gets stabbed in the ribs. Fred Rother comes over the finish the job. He like tries to stab him in the throat or whatever. Paul stops it with his hand. You can see the blade. The blade's kind of like like going like it's moving. It's like slicing his hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess we he like kind of moves forward. Frey Rothera moves forward like he stabbed Paul, but Paul stabbed him with the knife that was in his ribs and stabbed him there.
Mm-hmm.
And he got stabbed in the shoulder with the one that Frey Rothera was stabbing his throat at. So Frey Rothera dies, and he's like, "You're a good fighter, Atreides," and he
Mm-hmm.
dies over. Um, and then he goes back to the Emperor, and he like puts out his ring, and the Emperor's just like,
Yeah, the ring that his dad gave him
he's like
as being the head of Atreides.
he
Yeah.
kind of looks at it, or he goes forward, and Florence Pugh is like, I will accept your hand in marriage if you let my father live.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Paul looks at her at all. He just continues looking at the Emperor. And he extends his hand, and the Emperor looks at it, and he's like, no. And then he's like stomping his foot. He's like, fucking kiss
Yeah.
the ring.
Still no
Kiss it.
music to all that part, which is so cool.
Yeah,
Such a cool decision.
he's like,
Yeah.
kiss the ring. And he kind of doesn't, but he does. He like missed this hand.
Mm-hmm.
He missed his hand because his hand was bloody, but he was like, there, I did it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and all the Fremen celebrate, and then Shawnee leaves. But before she leaves,
Everyone bows to him,
Mhm. but
and everyone except for Shawnee.
Shawnee, before she leaves, Paul kind of gives her a look,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm sorry, but I kind of have to do this. And I meant what I meant, but Shawnee is still like super pissed off, and so she walks
Mm-hmm.
off. And as she walks off, Paul gives like another double take and kind of looks at her. So I think we're gonna get something with them in the third. They're not done yet. I
From
feel like Paul and the princess, their relationship, their
from what
marriage
I
is
do
gonna be
know,
very
and
whatever.
I'll say in the non I watched a non spoiler review with Angry Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and not that it's like super spoilers, but he did mention they've read all the books, and what he did mention is a change from the books to the movies is um that Chani's character is a lot more upfront, and she does a lot more in the movies than she does in the book. She's a bigger character in the movies than she is in the book. So I'm wondering if in the book that's the same ending as what they did in the movie. Just has me curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess you have to read the book to find out.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Are
did
you gonna
think
read the book?
maybe. Yeah,
Maybe.
I used to read books back in my
I
time.
mean,
I don't
I
really do
have it,
that
so
anymore.
if I read it and I can let you borrow it after I read it.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so I think Paul and the princess's marriage are just gonna be kind of commensurate. It's not gonna be really
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
It's just gonna be marriage, nothing else. They're
Wouldn't that
not
be
gonna be,
something though? If they do end up like falling in love or something.
bro. No, I don't. I don't. I do not need Florence Pugh and Timothy Chalamet having those types of scenes. Please, no. Please no.
And then
Um.
the final shot, because they're like celebrating that they won the war for now. They won the war.
Mhm.
Um, the last shot is Chani out in Arrakis, um, and she's gets out her blades, the hooks,
Mhm.
and she's about to ride the sandworm, and she's like getting emotional. Looks like she's about to cry
And looks like
before it cuts.
she's leaving. Like she's gonna go out
Yeah,
on her own.
going her way. Yeah.
I think she's kind of heartbroken too about the whole situation.
Mhm.
Um.
And I think in the third one she's not going to be like on her own the whole entire movie. I think she'll eventually come back.
Yeah. Me too. But yeah, I mean, that was the end of the movie.
Hmm.
Again, so
We
many
probably
good
missed so
parts.
much.
We
It's
did.
almost 3 hours. It, I guess if we need to, I guess when I'm sure before Dune, I'm sure we're going to be doing rewatches before the third one comes out.
Hmm.
So if we somehow end up making a video or something talking about it again, we'll go into much more detail because I'm trying to process it still, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah,
But it really was a good movie. Like
that was great.
a lot of good moments, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good direction. Um, but yeah, if you want to hear our overall thoughts on the movie, go watch the actual non spoiler review. But yeah, that's the plot. If y'all have
Yeah,
watched
so
this, go ahead.
I'll say real quick. Give me like your top three favorite moments of the movie. You said your favorite was the when Paul rides the sandworm, right?
Right. Yeah, that was my favorite part. My second favorite part is the last battle between him and Fade Rothra,
Mm-hmm.
and then the third battle is when the third my third favorite part is I think it's when they attack with the worms, the worm shot of them
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the ground, and nine of those bad boys just going into the base and just destroying
Okay.
all the buildings and stuff.
My top three are the Coliseum, the introduction of Fade Rothera and the
Mm-hmm.
Coliseum fight.
Yeah.
Uh, like you said, the battle with the three sandworms coming out,
Mm.
and my third is not in any order, but my number, the last of my top three favorite moments are the fight, the hand to hand one on one fight with Paul and Fade Rothera at the end.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of good parts though. There's a lot
Yeah.
of good parts.
Oh, it's
So
I'm probably I'm probably gonna see it again in theaters before it leaves theaters,
most
and
likely.
I'm sure on rewatch I'll catch a lot more because it was a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, that's our spoiler review. Um, if you want to watch the non-spoiler, go do so now. But
A
yeah,
lot shorter.
it's a lot shorter. But with that being said, like and subscribe, the usual. Um, and I think the next movie that we're gonna be watching together is Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm pretty sure.
Kung Fu Panda 4.
Oh, we're gonna watch that. Okay, Kung Fu Panda 4
I
then.
think right next week.
Yeah, it is next week, which is
Yeah, we
crazy.
have that.
And then
That and
Ghostbusters
Imaginary coming out the same day,
and Imaginary. Yeah.
and then Ghostbusters. Then we'd also we're probably not going to review it, but we have a couple of those streaming movies like Spaceman with Adam Sandler,
And we're gonna watch
and
the
then
Megamind one.
apparently the terrible Megamind sequel. Yeah.
Yeah. So just keep an eye out for if I mean we're probably not gonna review the streaming ones, but keep an eye out for the other for Kung Fu
Mm-hmm.
Panda and
Probably
Ghostbusters
going to do a ranking of
and
the Kung Fu Panda movies.
and Imaginary as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Blumhouse.
yes, a Blumhouse movie. Yay! Anyway, I'm Cameron. This is Jacob, and we'll see y'all on the next slashers and superheroes. Bye bye.